This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Raul G. Bobbio, and you are a audiovisual director, and you're a cinematographer, and you're also a musician. And welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight or this morning, depending on where you are?
Well, it's nice to hi there. Thanks for meeting me. Well, yeah, it's been kind of chill around here, so I think I'm good and everything's good around.
Great, great. Before we get into the heart of your story, I always ask any artist that's on the show, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Well, to be honest, from the start, uh, I think I have like different a different view of the world. So, for example, in the music field, right? Right now, I'm composing different kind of genres, time signature pieces, also very audiovisual, not only like a music to hear, but like a concept albums. One of
Hmm.
my latest, the release that I'm most proud of, it's called Los Mitos del Farabajar. It's like a concept album from a Persian culture.
Oh wow,
So it's kind of you have to hear it the whole album together.
to
The
understand
the song
it.
is the intro piece. Then the second theme it's in a pi time signature. So yeah, I think my vision is really like weird. So
No, I
I
don't think I kinda just to give you my background, I'm a child of the '70s. I grew up, like, in, fusion jazz. I also love, rock operas, like, The Who, Tommy, Pink Floyd,
oh, Pink Floyd, I love
Sun
Pink
Ra,
Floyd.
Sun Ra, Quadrophenia, and, I like the idea of progressive rock, and I like the idea of albums being able to tell stories in a rock opera type of format that The Who kinda started with Tommy, and then you see, other bands got into that, and, if you think about the early Genesis, Peter Gabriel Genesis, they had a lot of rock opera type of concepts that were very avant-garde. And so that space, man, I like Lou Reed, I like Big Star, like a lot of experimental music. I've always liked people who kind of maybe aren't like most popular artists,
Yeah, it's
but
a really a niche
yeah, niche.
to begin with because all people love like urban music, reggaeton, pop, and
Yeah.
like normal like usual kind of stuff. So I
Yeah.
think I grew up hearing from what all the bands you said, and
Mhm.
also I remember that when I was young, I played a lot of this game called Age of Empires. So, and the music was it was like an ethnic folk. So it was all over my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So having ethnic instruments like steel tongue drum, darbuka, and also those kind of instruments. But when I started doing music, I didn't have that. I started doing music knowing just the right amount, not being like a master composer, just
Mhm.
knowing a four by four time signature, and I started doing minimal tech. So I
Yeah,
have like
minimalism. Yeah,
I
well,
have
the thing is, like, sometimes, like, you don't have to go to Berkeley. You don't have to have music theory. Sometimes, a lot of the in the African American experience, all the bluesmen, they weren't taught. They're like self-taught. Like a lot of, you do have the jazz folks that did go to Berkeley. You did have people who do have that kind of classical background, but you do have a lot of people who find music just because they find something in their own vision, their own voice, and they have a way to express it that might not be like in the canon. There's like canon people who are trained, and sometimes things that come from people that aren't trained, or maybe not the best piano player, not the best, guitar player, but they have an idea. And
yeah.
when they do that idea as their own vision, it can be hold up as well as anything that was coming from the canon.
That literally happened to me. Also, by the way, one of my best friends is from Berkeley, so he was like, how did you make this? Like, how in the world can you create this?" And I went, "Oh, I just I in pandemic, I've studied a lot of music by my own. I've read
Hmm.
a lot of books on music theory, and then I switched from doing normal from electronic music to synthwave to
Yes, that's right.
to make to mix it with prose with spoken word. So
Oh yeah, I
then I
completely
started creating like musical poems and like
spoken
weird
word.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. And then I evolved doing this, and I remember that uh, I like I had an idea like what if I would like mix this music from my past from this kind of games like from Pirates, Asian mythologies, that was ethnic folk, with my current kind of like music, like spoken word and
Word
narrative
synthesis.
stories.
Yeah.
And then I went to a whole different field that I was, oh, this sounds really good.
That's interesting. Can I give you like my podcast is named after my band. Phantom Electric Ghost is a band, it's a one person band. And I am a synthesist and I do all my music is based on me playing everything. And I record into multi tracks and I've been playing since I was 16. I'm 57. And I've done a lot of spoken word pieces that are based on like epic poems that I've written. And I've been inspired from like, Lou Reed being, a poet from American standpoint, like a Bob Dylan idea, like that sometimes you can tell a story and
Yeah,
you're not actually a vocalist, right? But you could write that story down. You could have that sound like story or sound painting. And
that
you
was exactly what I was thinking doing that, because like it's like a way to express what you're like creating in your mind. And yeah, I'm also not like a virtuoso singer, like
yeah,
I'm a regular singer, but I prefer to like tell, I put more emphasis on telling the story, what I was feeling, what I was imagining right now, uh, to the music, to
like
merge
a
it.
spoken
So
word, like a
so
narration, like you
yeah,
narrate against the music. And one thing I found is because I'm a synthesist, I found vocoders. I found vocal synthesizers or transformers. And so I started playing with pitch. And so I created characters with my voice that I could not do in with my real voice. But through synthesis, I could create different versions of my voice. I could make voices that were feminine. I could make voices that were masculine. I could make voices that sound like somebody that's not me. And that's how I was able to kind of get, weave vocals over time into my music because I said, well, I don't like my straight voice. And if I do use my straight voice, I just speak like a poem. I just do oral. But then when I wanted to do other things, I started playing with like, vocal synthesizers and things like
yeah, that's also that's the whole idea, to tell the whole story that you have in your mind. So then in pandemics, like recall that kind of ethnic folk music, and I began studying it, learning it, different instruments, like how the old tribes were using those instruments, like
Mm,
ancient instruments, like the darbuka.
wow.
It's like a drum, a steel drum with like it's a leathery snare that
Hmm.
it's more than 4,000 years ago.
Wow.
So
That,
uh,
that's interesting. 'Cause my daughter learned taiko, like Japanese drums, and she also learned some African drums. And yeah, I think like using some more indigenous instruments or instruments from different cultures is really cool. You know.
yeah, like the in the case of Africa, like, yeah, I don't know, but in like African Peruvian culture, there's an instrument called djembe. It's a
Hmm.
like it's an African instrument, it's also an African drum, and I also play that. And like I started like playing with those
With like
different kind of instruments. So then
percussion. Yeah,
Yeah,
you like indigenous percussive instruments then.
it's amazing. Yeah, one of my dreams is buying like the whole tabla set from the Indian culture.
Mhm.
It's a whole set of drums. Yeah, I
I think that's a
haven't.
cool way to go because a lot of people are so, into, things that are like, everything's digital. And I am still I'm a very much an analog mode transistor, a lot of old 1970s, 60s tech. And I like to use the older stuff because I like the variability of it and it feels more alive than some of the digital stuff. And I do appreciate, percussive instruments like taikos, African drums, and the Indian drums that you're talking about. It allows you to do things and things that you probably don't hear. Right, but you
Yeah,
wouldn't hear in popular music, you'd hear in, like, more ethnic music or indigenous music, and why not cross things into, like, a world music idea? Well, we have some pop artists that have done world music, that have
I
brought in
think
things.
Aurora, she does something like that. I haven't heard about much of her, but
Mm,
I think she does like she uses also some kind of ethnic instruments.
yeah.
I really hope so.
Well, Paul Simon and, like, and if you think about he brought in a lot of South African musicians into his albums, and then you had Peter Gabriel bringing a lot of South Africans into his records back in the day. I don't know as many people, yeah, you like Aurora you're talking about does that, but yeah, I think it's a cool place to go from it. I always look for the atypical. I like to talk to people who are doing something that's so different because if you everybody's doing the same thing, it's boring to me. So
Yeah,
it's
it's that's that's the feeling. The feeling. That's why I think like uh, I love being like I love that my music it's that kind of an unusual piece
Mhm.
because I have the opportunity like being the first audience member that can hear myself. So it's something that I don't usually here in playlists in Spotify. Like I
Yeah.
try to search for similar artists. I remember when I put my first ethnic album in Reddit, I had the most beautiful compliment ever. Like some Redditor told me, "Dude, this sounds like Enigma on
Wow.
mushrooms." And I was, oh, thanks, dude. That's that for me. And Enigma is it's like a great
Well, that
ensemble. Like
it's
it's
great
amazing.
when people appreciate or understand where you're coming from. Because I've always been into, like, very experimental stuff, like, I like Sun Ra, and now everybody likes Sun Ra. But during the day when back when Sun Ra, American jazz band, they were very experimental, one of the first jazz bands to use a Moog, to use a synthesizer. Back in the '50s, like, when the first
Oh,
Moogs showed up, they were one of the groups of musicians that actually said everybody was against. I don't know if you know this, back in the '50s when the Moog Robert Moog created the first synths, most traditional musicians were against them. They did not think they were valid instruments. And,
I could think so.
in Sun Ra, an American jazz band that was doing, like, bebop, they actually got some of the first Moogs and actually embraced it. And Moog felt like, a little bit, better about what he was doing because he had all these traditional musicians from, like, all the music academies saying, "Oh, these like, that's not a real instrument." And so, the fact that an experimental jazz band actually, latched onto his instrument and said, "Hey, yeah, we can see a use for this." And so, like, that to me is always it's interesting that, like, the people who experiment to me are like the future, the people who are willing to see that, why not use that sound? Why not use this indigenous drum? Why not use this tone? Why not use this
Or
tuning?
mixing different
Yeah,
sounds and different cultures, like
yeah,
weather report. Like you can see
yeah.
the Latin influence there. Like it's a kind of progressive. It's kind of jazzy. It's kind of Latin. It's kind of
Well,
ethnic,
cross
like from
genre.
around the world.
Cross genre is the way, like to me, is like when you take if you can cross genre, like Weather Report is a cross genre, Miles Davis taking bebop and then bringing it into fusion and still having elements of both, like the musicianship of a bebop musician of a a modal jazz musician being able to take that with taking psychedelic rock, taking Hendrixian concepts, and then bringing it into jazz and accepting it. Where they're, some of the jazz people, when they didn't know how to read Hendrix. But
Oh,
Miles actually saw Hendrix and said, "Well, there's stuff there we could use. There's something we can use with that. We're not just saying, well, he's just a, I don't know how to handle that." And Herbie Hancock actually talked about that, where Miles told him it was okay to like Hendrix. And so it's like you get the permission structure. It's like it's
yeah.
okay to cross genre, you know.
Yeah, it's I think that the music, like, it has like two versions where you can do what it's trending, like it's popular, but you can like experiment and mix genres and like play with different concepts and like create different compositions that maybe you've never heard of. Like in my
Yeah.
case, it was like that because I was looking in the when I was like after pandemics, when I studied different music theories about ethnic music, I noticed a pattern that in the ethnic music from the like in the occidental part of the world,
Hmm.
we had like almost every piece is in 4/4.
It's
But
all
in
for
the eastern
that's
part of the world, it's a mix of
time
different kind of
signature.
rhythms, time signatures. It's 7/8, 9/8,
Mhm.
15th, like
Yeah, more
15th,
varied.
16th, and like in the Balkanic music, there's like a rhythmic called tinoli, and also in Arabic music and all of those Western rhythm. Like if you mix the whole concept idea, I think that's why like I wanted to create this new kind of music that like mixing all what motivate me, right? In the spoken word, the odd time signature, the like
Yeah.
experimental music, the ethnic instruments, and the whole idea. And then like I stuck on that genre. I created the mitos, los mitos del Farabajar. Then I went to one called Metamorphosis because I usually start like knowing, like recognizing my music from like that point, because all that I made before, it was normal music. It was like the usual stuff, things wave in 4/4, and
Yeah.
also electronic. So I have like a song that like a musical piece that it's like a creep for Radiohead. You know, like Radiohead, they
Yeah.
don't like creep. And I, like when I was uh, starting doing music and I was doing electronic music, I had
Mhm.
like a song that's called Galactic Heaven, that it gets like for an unknown artist like me, having people shazamming that piece
Mhm.
more than 10, 20 times a day. It's
Wow.
something like it gives me exposure, but it gives me a exposure that I don't like because it's the most generic song
Well,
you've
see,
ever
it's
heard.
not really typical where your head's at.
Yeah, it's like the most generic musical piece that you can have. Oh, I've heard that a million times. Yeah, you might have heard it because it's the most typical electronic piece of but I
Mhm.
don't know where where people are getting like that music piece from.
Well, people
And
like what's familiar. I mean, the algorithms tend to like what they know. Like, the problem is, like, I have had with, like, the Western music industry is they tend to just repeat whatever works. So you get a lot of clones of a certain style. So once you get somebody to kind of define a style, then you'll get like a million clones of that. And and it's very hard to get the people who actually are the innovators, because like no one wants to take a risk on the innovator because they won't go out the gate getting a million listens. The innovators, it used to be back in the day, Zappa used to talk, Frank Zappa used to say, like back in the day, record industry would allow an artist like Zappa and the Mothers of Invention to grow. and maybe not have a big fan base, but they eventually would grow, and he eventually got some hits, right? But they allowed them to get out there, and when they were building, because they said, "Well, I don't know if I like it," like the producer, but maybe the kids like it. Now everybody thinks they know what a hit is, and it's always got to follow some kind of algorithm, follow some kind of procedure, and it's using the same samples, same sound engines, same rhythms, same kicks, same toms, same everything. And you're like, that's kind
Even the same like musical structure. You have the
of
repetitive part, like you have to repeat it more than 8 times at
yeah,
the like
drops.
the leitmotif one like it sounds like a small ostinato that repeated itself like constantly. So people like will internalize the that kind of music. Yeah, but to like hearing that in my case, like here, like knowing that like 10, 20 people a day Shazam this specific part of music is like I don't want to see that. So I like
Yeah,
I don't
well, that's
recognize it.
what they
It's
like. I
like
think people like what they know, and a lot of times people don't. Our music fans today aren't like the music. I'm a child of the '70s, right? We used to sit, listen to a Pink Floyd album in the basement. Listen to like a Led Zeppelin album in the basement, or or a Genesis album, or
like to spend some time like
like the whole thing.
appreciating the music.
Yeah, we would listen. We weren't on our phone because we didn't have a phone. We weren't on a computer. We're in the basement listening to the whole A side, right? The whole B side. Like we weren't skipping around on a playlist trying to, or at the same time I'm playing a video game. At the same time I'm on my TikTok. At the same
And
time I'm
watching
watching a
the
TV
train
show.
guy like jumping the whole
Yeah, I mean, I got a 25-year-old, and she's like on her PS5, on her iPhone, on her Nintendo, all at the same time. Right, and I'm like, "Well, what are you really watching? What are you really processing?" Well, I'm looking at all of it, but you're kind of looking at none of it. It's like it's like the focus. I think like when you don't have as many channels back in the '70s, we had the library, 4 TV channels, the radio. You didn't have a lot of distractions, so you would actually focus on the book you're reading, focus on the song you're listening to, focus on the TV show you watch. You didn't have distractions. I
and
think
you
in a
also like in those cases you like that is the main reason that I think there's like a hidden tracks in different parts of the albums, right? Because like you have time to explore the
find
whole
yeah,
piece,
find the
and
stuff.
then you find that, oh, this track there's no sign of this track in here. Well,
It's
this
a
is a
secret
hidden
track.
track. Yeah, it's a secret track.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is like we were entranced by the vinyl because we could look at the artwork that was there, the liner notes, try to see if and then imagine, listen to the song as it is, then have the actual liner notes, and then you felt like you were connected to the artist. It felt like you understood. Like when you read a novel, you get to understand that author. When you go into a deeper track on a record, you know the depth of that artist. If you only hear the single, like you're kind of pointing out, people are hearing that one song that they're being able to pick up from you, right? And they think that's who you are. But as you said, that isn't really represent your true musical direction.
Yeah, that's, so
Yeah.
so that really like so that's why I don't like count on my musical history. Like the starting point from me like what I recognize is from Los Mitos del Farabajar to like until now. Like then I got Metamorphosis that I mix different kind of also Eastern and some Argentinian like
Mhm.
there's a piece that it's some Argentinian tango inspired of like it's in 7/8, but like it's like the melody it's really inspired by Argentinian tango. And also then like the my latest release, it's called Ishtar.
Mhm.
It's a whole album that I made. Well, I made the album before the book because what I had in mind was a whole theatrical musicalized theater.
Hmm.
So I wanted to stage a play where some actors were like interpretate like some characters, and then like a pause where a band was playing at the other side of the theater,
Oh wow.
and then like entwine between the band playing and the actors like
For,
playing their parts. But to be honest, I live in Peru, and like uh, actors can't handle that much of uh, here in Peru, at least. The voice acting is really loud. So
oh,
my play was almost like silent film. So there was no dialogues at all. And when I went to do the casting, I was like telling the actors, "Oh, can you like play this character but without saying any words?" And
oh,
people
like a
was, "No,
silent
no,
film.
yeah, it's like a silent
Like a
film." So
silent film. Yeah. Well, that to me is well, that probably would play well in San Francisco. Like in certain places, like in the U.S., where people are more avant-garde, they would probably get it. The silent film period in in American history. I always love going back and watching the silent film because there's a lot of stuff that you can't do with like you can do like not having your voice is a good thing.
and you
It's
have to express all of that with your like in your face, in your
yeah,
gestures, in your
yeah.
body acting. So when I was casting the actors here, they were, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Like I'm used to being loud and like have like a Stanislavski like formation, so they have to over exaggerate everything. They
Oh
can't
wow.
like perform." Like
I'd
they
have
told
to
me, "Oh,
find people from different culturally, like somebody that maybe has that vibe. You have to find an actor that's looking for that experience. You
yeah."
perhaps have to like a casting call worldwide to see where are actors that want to actually focus on nonverbal communication
That's right. So
because
then
nonverbal,
when
yeah, it's so important. It is important in the craft of it.
I tried to do that, and well, it didn't go well. So
Mm,
then I switched, because at the same like parallel I was composing the whole album. So the album started like a concept of a story about a creator, like a potter, and his creation that comes alive, kind of the golden myth, something like that,
mhm.
but more focusing on an epic love story. So I was like creating the album and doing the casting for the play,
Mhm.
but the play didn't like went through. So I switched it to a book that I end up writing, and I think
So
today
it's like the soundtrack to the book.
it's on, today it's on Amazon, I think it's called Ishtar. So I adapted the book to the album.
Yeah, and I actually
uh,
have the album here.
and the album, it's like it's like in Roman numerals. So like when you read the book, you can hear the musical pieces. For example, if
Yeah, so
there's
it starts the first one that you see up there, right? The first track.
and the names are like in a mix. Like the names are not words, but are like a different kind of phonetic representations of what it might have sound in the
Wow.
ancient Babylonian language. So
Oh, wow. So
the
that's what you're doing?
numerals,
Alliteration of that? Is that what
yeah,
it is?
yeah. So the numerals are like for the chapters. So the first and the second chapter, you can read it hearing that track, and then like the whole 12 um, well chapters can be resumed, like can be summarized within the whole album.
And
So
then
yeah,
if you're reading the book, like, it's like if you're meant to, like, listen to this while you're reading.
yeah, that's
That's a good
the
idea.
whole idea.
Good idea. That's interesting. Maybe I'm just gonna play maybe 30 seconds of the first track just because, on Spotify, if I go more than 30 seconds, they end up, like, muting it. But I
Yeah,
wanted people to hear what we've been discussing, at least a piece of it. So I'll play the first track, like, first couple 30 seconds of it, okay?
sure.
I'd love to play more of that. I really like the feel of that. And being a synthesist, like, did you do that with acoustic or with synthesizers?
Uh, I
The,
did that with synthesizers and my Stilton hand drum. So
hmm
the percussion is like it's organic percussion. The upper bass it's a synth, like it's from a sound library, I think.
hmm
And the winds also, it's the representation, because like having a contact, there are a lot of sound libraries that
Yeah, yeah.
record the whole instrument. So like it's a Japanese chukushi,
Oh, cool. Yeah,
and like there's an upper bass and there's a moog also, a moog like sound, that like the full synth part.
that's
uh,
interesting. I really, I do appreciate the way you compose that. And I find it super interesting because, as a synthesis, I play with a lot of like I play with like West Coast or what you call subtractive synthesis and additive synthesis, and also sampled or granular synthesis, and in that world, no, you'll get a sampled flute, right, to get a real flute or the
yeah,
real
they,
get a
they have to
Stradivarius
like they
or German
record the
piano.
whole process. It's
Yeah,
amazing when they go to the artists and they like record all the kind of sounds. You have to play all the notes, and you
yeah,
have
you got to get
to
the whole range. You get like if you're on like if I'm on my 61 key keyboard and I sample something, I actually can you know, get it on all 61 keys or get it on all 72 or get all 88. You go through the whole process and you customize it so that sound will work across the whole keyboard. And then it will work for like when that keyboard's being used to represent a violin or represent a piano or represent a horn. It's like you've got that tone across the whole range of your input device. So, a lot of times the keyboard is mimicking, a wind instrument or it's mimicking a guitar or it's mimicking a bass. So you have to learn like that the aspect of well, how to I actually started on wind instruments. I know flutes. I know how to play a flute and a clarinet. So when I do a wind on a I can trill it. I can do the trill because I know how to do a trill for my mouthpiece, but I know I kind of mimic it on the keyboard, and you have to kind of learn how do you mimic this instrument on a keyboard. So
yeah,
that
with the pitch wheel and everything like.
and modulator. I mean, you can do it with pedals, you can do it with modulators, and you can use like Roland has supernatural aspects to their sense that allow you to maybe throw in trills with like different articulations of the keyboard. You can get into a trill, or you could mimic a slide on a guitar, or you can mimic a slide on a bass. There's different things you can do with some instruments to create the articulations that you can do the actual real feature of that instrument. But I mean, that's getting real into it. But
And yeah, and you have to know how the instrument works, what it can do. Like you have to know how it might sound, because like if you only like like press the key, and then there's no like a small pace, like a slow momentum in the instrument. Like
yeah,
in the case of the wind, you have to know and understand that people like maybe like
you have to take a
they are,
breath.
yeah, they have to take a breath. Even they are like having circular breathing, you
Yeah.
have to take a breath in
Yeah,
about
you can't
between.
if you're gonna mimic like a clarinet playing, you don't endlessly play. You gotta leave room for the breaths. You have to leave room for the trills. You have to really leave room for like the things you can do on the mouthpiece in terms of the tonguing and the ways that you can articulate like a wind instrument from the mouthpiece. So like using a wind controller is a better idea sometimes because some of the wind controllers are really good, and I actually use some because it makes me get closer to like how I would actually play it. Um, but then with some synthesizers with polyphonic aftertouch, you can program like different behavior based on how far you press the key. So when you start really getting into sound design, you can start to understand the instrument. Say, well, I'm going to make it do this when I actually push this far and I go this far. If I get all the way to the end, it does this. So you can start to kind of remap it if you get crazy. I get a little crazy.
You have to like understand it, to have to being able to reproduce it, to having able to map it, and to like having the whole idea of the instrument. So yeah, that whole album is like for an ensemble, to be
Mhm.
precise. So like a lot of the instruments are acoustic instruments that you can play in a theater.
Yeah.
So that's like and also like one of other issues that I got like in the play situation was that not every musician can play different time signatures really well. At
Oh
least
yeah. They might
no,
be yeah, they might be certain like genre experts, so they're used to funk or rock or jazz or classical or
yeah,
country,
they are
and they
like
might have
they
limitations.
know their skill, but if you like
Push them.
give them something new, it's, oh, how do you play this, like and they were, oh yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, they wanna reinterpret it to their comfort zone. They might
Yeah.
wanna, like, change it, that's the problem. Sometimes, like, when you're working with people, like, I like to write and play my own pieces because I know what I want, so I just take the time to play every part. But, like, if I have to give it when I've actually had bands and sometimes I'd have to, like, let go of the control because the bass player would wanna add their vision for that line. Right, verse and the drummer might want to add their vision for that drum. I said, okay, wait. So eventually, at some points, with some songs, I was very controlling. It's like, no, it has to be this way. Other songs, I said, okay, you know what? I'll let it go because it actually came out in a different way. And then for a live version, that was fine. It's fine that it can come out this way for this live version because I still have my master version. But yeah, it's kind of like you have to know what you want to present.
Yeah, and then like there's a 15/8 piece there, and it was really hard for the musicians to like play it in the, not, I'm not saying like in the really
Which
I
number
don't,
is that? Which one is that?
I think it was the last one.
The last song is the one that's in the different time signature, this one?
Yeah.
Let me play that to see how that
Mhm.
sounds.
Yeah, that was. And then the bass kicks in. So we will go to 1 minute.
Can't play too much more though, but but I like, yeah, your songs start to kick in. Yeah, maybe I should try from the middle of one of them next time. But, yeah, that's interesting. So, like, I like your use of percussion, and I like the way you bring in the acoustic instruments through the sampled or the patches you're using.
Yeah, because like the I'm not like not a virtuous singer, no, a virtuoso, also a player. I know my way on the keyboard. I know my way on some instruments, but what at least I'm proud of is that all of the steel tongue drum, it's all me. Like
Mhm.
it was recorded on a like in a home studio that I've got.
And you mic the
Uh,
mic the drum. You mic the
I,
drum. It's a
I
big part.
mic it, and like it's only not with expensive mics, just with a Shure,
Mhm.
and well, my SSL that I have like in a console.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's
the
another one.
SSL with a Shure one, and then like, yeah, it was all me. Oh, I had to record like a bunch of times because again, I'm not a virtuoso, so I made a lot of mistakes there.
Yeah,
So
well, that's the nature. But sometimes mistakes are happy accidents. So I find sometimes like I might have an intention, and then sometimes over time, it's like the happy accident ends up being like, oh, that's actually bettering my intention.
yeah,
And
to be honest, that's why that like the whole cycle of the piece, like the whole bar, to
Hmm.
it's have two different like tonic notes.
Hmm.
It's because the first time I recorded, I like made a mistake, but that mistake sounded good.
Well,
so I
yeah,
was
there you go with it.
so I was, oh yeah, well, let's not correct this, but made this like a rule. So like
Yeah, that becomes the rule. But that's the thing. The possibilities. What I find is like what I call is like stream of consciousness or in the moment type of recording. And fusion musicians or modal jazz musicians kind of had this idea, right? There's no bad note. There's an opportunity. So if something evolves to from an unexpected note, that you don't actually throw it out, that sometimes you go with it. You say, hey, you know what? Like some of the most famous jazz sessions had like, a general frame, right? But then if they weren't wedded to the totality of that frame. So if something happened, like if Coltrane's playing with Davis and he's playing with some of the other great, musicians that were playing well on some of the classic bebop records, if somebody went in a direction, it's like, hey, that's cool. We'll go that way. And I think that to me is a cool place to be in when you're with people. Like, and you're a master musician. You can make a choice. You can say, I want to make it perfect, right? But perfection tends to be the enemy of creativity to me. And when you open yourself up to the possibility of that happy accident, then things get very expansive.
yeah, so that's like that uh that became the rule, and then like the whole piece was elaborated from that. So like what I recorded first was the still tongue like line, and then the whole other instruments like had to align with it, and it was a really interesting like experience. I know that for some reason only uh, good musicians like have to like they understand this kind of music. I don't know like uh, why people like it's different. It's difficult for like usual people that like they don't understand different other kind of genres. But
Yeah, well,
uh,
I think like people are only kind of, I think familiar fans are
yeah,
familiar with what's popular because music tends to be kind of a thing that people do in the crowd. So the crowd kind of mentality is very limiting to your overall riskiness. And a musician is not always going to be risk averse. The crowd's not is going to be risk averse. The crowd's going to go with what they think is hype, what they think is good. The musician eventually sometimes outgrows their crowd. You know, they get different. By when they're 17, they have these fans. When they're 25, they might not want to do what they were doing when they were 17. When they're 35, they don't want to do what they were doing when they were 25. So, but the fan might see that musician and only like what they did when they were 17.
yeah, that's why people like stop listening to the Beatles.
Yeah, because people like they like them at help, right? Or they like them like I want to hold your hand. By the time they get to Abbey Road, some people fell off because like I don't understand the White Album. I don't understand, you know, what you're doing there with Let It Be. Like, what are you doing? Because that's not what they knew, right? They knew them as like the ultimate teen band, the ultimate kind of pop teen
Yeah, it was
idol band, and then they became a progressive rock band. Like we're like, what's that?
yeah, and then people like thought that they were like, oh, that's not my style. I want to go with what's like sounding trending sound like right now. So yeah, yeah. So I think to be honest, I think that my music will be there just to be at least appreciated for with other musician fellows that
Yeah,
can understand it, because it might like I've shown this music to different kind of people that haven't at least that they haven't read
Book.
the whole book, the whole novel, but they were, oh, this sounds nice. It's not, oh, I understand it, but at least I got this like, it's not a feeling that they understand, but it's a feeling that at least they can
Comprehend.
digest it. Yeah,
They can, yeah,
comprehend
they can
it.
digest it. I think about like what your music is experimental, but it's not off-putting. Like some experimental music, like I would go back to like Lou Reed in the Velvet Underground did an album called White Light, White Heat, and the whole thing is like noise. It's an experiment in noise. Now, really radical producers to this day will kind of, even Bowie and Brian Eno will talk about that record, but a lot of fans don't understand that record. But like Brian Eno and Bowie understood the record, and they took aspects of it and used it in their style. So it was very informative to people who were producers and musicians. And even popular musicians like a Bowie could take from it, but the fans did not understand that record at all. So sometimes you have a situation where you're an artist and you actually are influencing other artists, producers, engineers, and they appreciate what you're doing, and you can get into the space of the creative, mind of the people who are creators. But the fans might not fully get it, but your inspiration might end up getting propagated into the music culture by producers of the future, you know, or
Yeah,
in the moment. Yeah, because I think sometimes like you're ahead of your time, like or you're ahead of the curve, and suddenly people recognize that hey, that's something that's interesting, you know.
I'd really love if that were my case.
What happens is like, the 808 drum machine was a commercial failure,
Yeah.
and it was picked up by the hip hop producers.
Oh well, yeah.
And it became like this like
The standard.
standard of hip hop, but that machine did not make any money. Roland had a habit of doing that. They did that with the TB03. Their bass machine became big part of techno. It was a failure in the marketplace. Like so, if you think about like the famous poet William Blake, the tiger, how fearful thy symmetry. That he's one of the greatest Victorian poets. He was not famous in the Victorian age. His poetry was found on metal plates in a barn after he died. But, he's considered one of the greatest romantic poets of all time because he actually took all his poetry and he had artwork etched in metal plates. Every poem has a piece of art attached to it. And it was found later, like the Songs of Innocence Experience poetry actually are metal plates with like pictures to go with every poem.
Or even Van Gogh.
Yeah, Van Gogh. Yeah, the people like so to me, like that's why the kind of big thing for permission structure for artists is like people might not get you, but if you have the feeling, if you have the passion, you should still put it into the world because sometimes art have putting that art in the world is important because there's no time. Time is like immaterial because other artists might find it, and you need to get it out there so the world knows about it. That's the way I see it. So you're still successful. That's the way you can look at it that way if you
Yeah,
want to.
and that literally is what motivates me, like doing what I do. To be honest, like having at least knowing that I reach at least even one person that can see this not only as an inspiration, but like it's I can appreciate it and can understand it. Like it's good enough for me because like it's difficult, at least for me, to express the whole concept in my mind through like music, through the stories, the whole idea to present it like the whole different pieces that comes together building one giant part like in the music field, like building a whole album. Like
Hmm.
it's that's the idea that I wanted to tell this story, but
You
like
had to do it as a book and an album because you had your different audio visual experience but also like you do stuff on TikTok with like horror too, right? That's
Yeah,
another thing.
that's a different phase
Kind
of me
yeah, yeah.
because like as I'm a film director, so I like the whole filmic background is what like also helps me to make music, to write, to compose, and also to appreciate different the seventh art, that it's like the film, the filmic art. So you
Hmm.
can see that if you appreciate the whole idea of only not sound but visual spectrum, you can understand a lot of uh, what the authors are saying. So yeah, so that in my case, I became a film director. I studied film, like in my I majored in film. So having that, to be honest, I always loved also like terror films or stories, like horror stories. So
Hmm.
then, in like in the social networks, you can find me like uh, recommending, and I like maybe not criticizing, but like talking about some horror films. You can
Hmm.
find me like I have a special segment that I like to like put myself in the billion's mind, right? Like
Oh,
for example, the one from today was like if this have you seen Seven from David Fincher?
yeah, yeah. That's a great movie.
Like if the villain wasn't a villain, but was like he was thinking that he did something right to society, because he was ending like major criminals. So but not in a good way, but he was
Yeah,
thinking that like
he
he
was
was
anti-hero.
like yeah, it's like a giant anti-hero. He was thinking he was doing right. So like the whole this they posed to us about like what if he wasn't a villain, that he was, maybe you can try to see the world through his eyes, so you
Yeah,
can understand him. So yeah, so
yeah, like a
I do.
vigilante with the golden heart. You know, like the that actually does the like that's kind of like the story of a lot of like at least American like the idea of Batman. You know, is that he's somewhat of a villain, right? He kind of go overdoes it, right? He's too much, a little bit too much vengeance. He's not the Superman. Everybody can look up to Superman, but Batman's kind of like, well, he's kind of like the black hat cowboy. You know,
Yeah,
he's like the outlaw. It's kind of like the outlaw thing of like the anti-hero. You know, you're like Clint Eastwood in the spaghetti westerns when he's the man with no name. Like he's a bad guy, right?
but
But
he was doing like kind of right stuff.
he's doing righteous stuff, but he was kind of like he's not actually a really great guy. You know, the
Yeah,
man with no name, he's doing all this righteous stuff, and he's actually attacking other bad guys, but he's a bad guy himself.
yeah. So yeah, that's like on Fridays I do this segment that I put myself in those kind of billions to see that they're like they were, and like I have at least a really good like audience with that, because
Mhm.
like people they love to hear that, and to have something to think about that, like especially if they've seen the movie, like if they've seen
Yeah,
the film, they know the film, so they are, oh yeah, maybe that guy wasn't like that bad at all, maybe he was right in their own kind of way of thinking. Like it's not right by moral acts, but it's
yeah.
like he was thinking he was doing right. So yeah, at least I've got like a decent audience there, more
Well,
than a
and
musician.
sometimes, like, like, with these platforms like TikTok, you know, they can give you, like, another life. Like, if you find a niche and it could be different than what you do. Like, you're a musician, you're a filmmaker, you're doing this other stuff on TikTok. So, like, the idea of that I love about these different spaces on the net is, like, you on one space, you could be doing this, on another space, you could be doing that. Right. So sometimes I do podcasting, but also I'm a musician. So like in some places, like you can hear my music, and other places you see me interview people. So it's like it ends up being like, oh, I can have a couple of hats on, you know. And you're doing the same thing.
Yeah,
That, I think it's cool about the ether is that you have that opportunity to kind of reimagine your own.
like you
Like
can show different faces of like that you have like this is one side of me and this is another side of me on different platforms, on different not only platforms but in different spaces, I think that everyone has too much to say but they can't say it like that all in that
one
small
place.
time, like in that one life. So if they have the opportunity to like to like divide themselves and have this these different personas saying what they think about this, and this another persona showing what they want to they like what they are expressing themselves. Like I think every artist at least have this giant like wholesome mindset of different areas they love to express, but there's not enough time to express all of that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times the artists will get pigeonholed. You know, Stephen King is famous for having a pseudonym so he could go and like Richard Bachman, so he could go and do different things. So, you know, as Richard Bachman, he would do this. Stephen King, he would do that. So the idea is like sometimes you love to be able to, and you know, Bowie was famous for this change of personas, going from Ziggy Stardust to Thin White Duke to Aladdin Sane. He'd change. And so Ziggy Stardust and Thin White Duke, they don't do the same kind of music, but it's the same guy. He's doing totally different types of music as you know, the idea of David Bowie, but he would change. And that's like rare that people can get away with it. Not everybody can do that. Sometimes you get pigeonholed, and the public doesn't let you do it, or you aren't successful. Not that they don't let you, but you're not successful at doing it.
Yeah, that's those are most of the cases.
Yeah,
A lot of people they want to try different. They want to express, but they might like if they have an audience like that they know them for that. Most of the cases, sadly, they don't have like their audience is like, oh, just stick to the film part, no, don't do music or something like that.
yeah. It's just don't be a film star, be a musician.
Or
You know,
yeah, the
don't be
other
a
way, it
or the
like
other
the
way,
other way around. Yeah.
don't be a musician, be an actor. Because I only like it when you play like bad guys, or I only like it when you play this. You know, it's like Harrison Ford was funny because like everybody wanted him to be Han Solo forever, and he said, "No, I'm not doing it." And you know,
He retired.
he just stopped doing it. He wouldn't do it. I mean, he could have done it forever, but he's just like, "No, I don't want to do that." And he kind of nipped it in the bud. And sometimes, like you're an actor, and that's kind of an interesting situation where he totally nipped that in the bud. And he said, "No, I'm not doing it." And I think that was interesting.
But then like he went to Red Hulk, and there was, I saw his interview like, hey, why are you acting Red Hulk? And he was, oh, they gave me a lot of reasons to
I
to be
got no
Red
money.
Hulk.
I need a retirement fund.
Yeah.
I need to be secure in my retirement. So I mean, like you have different reasons why you do things, but yeah, it's just interesting that you know people kind of like if you get into like Orson Welles, you know yeah, he was such a great director, and he kind of fell off. Kind of fell into this whole the critics kind of came after, but he was just such a great talent, and people felt like him and Marlon Brando. People felt very kind of cheated that they didn't give like as best as they could, and they had personal reasons why they couldn't because like things happened. Like how you handle fame, sometimes it can be your worst enemy.
Yeah, it mostly is. It mostly is.
Yeah, I mean it's like you have to be able to be balanced and be able to have good well being. The creative industry sometimes isn't very kind to the creators. Um, but you have to give yourself some grace and then figure out what you can handle.
Yeah, if you love what you do, even if you don't have like that much of an audience, like for example, in my case, uh, I have a small amount of listeners, like monthly listeners, and I'm okay with it because at least I reach, as I told you, with one person that I've reached, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
and I don't. I know that Spotify won't support my life because
Yeah.
of
We all
the
have to find we're all finding different ways, because like the Spotify is kind of the radio to get you out in the world. But a lot of times, like we do the music, if you're a musician, you create because you love it.
yeah.
If you get people to get it and understand it and they jump on the bandwagon, that's cool. But I always gonna do it anyway. And sometimes we radiate at a frequency that suddenly there's a law of attraction, people get it. And sometimes we're not quite in that space for people to get it, and smaller groups of people get it. But that doesn't mean I won't stop radiating, so you keep on doing it.
Yeah, that's the whole idea of being an artist is to show your art. Even if you don't have like a big audience, just show your art, do what you love, and at least I know I'm doing that, and I'm really glad doing it. At least uh,
Well, I
trying
like
that.
to I love to have people give their vision, and we actually hit the hour mark. Like we never usually expect that we hit it, but we always hit it. And we do have the rec0.com link, and that will be fully clickable. And we do encourage people to watch the podcast or read or watch this on whatever platform they want to click the link. It will be fully clickable. Check out all the material that you have on your website. I was able to find your Spotify. Do you have other links on there that people can find everywhere, all your work on your website, right?
Well, in my website, there's like there are my books. Also, I think there's my Spotify.
Yeah,
At
I
least
got you.
and please listen like after Los Mitos del Farabajar. Don't listen before that. People say that Los Mitos del Farabajar is my like grand piece,
That's your big
and like,
piece. Yep.
yeah, so like all that follows that album, that's what I like I make right now. That's the kind of music that I am making, like I'm currently making.
That's cool. Well, I encourage everybody to listen to what you've said, but like sometimes it's cool to see where you've come from to where you are. Like I like to listen to everything. That's me, but I'm a musician, so I'm a different person. But thank you for being on the show today. And like I said, this has been live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We will be on platforms like Apple Music, Spotify, Video Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon, many more, Substack. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the evening or day, because I always forget what time zone we're in.
To you too. Thanks for having me.